broken supplicant, but as a woman who had survived the disdain of the world and was still unbowed. A woman who had gained power by her own efforts and could offer an alliance. She would have earned her victory over the forces that had always attempted to relegate her to the background of her own life, a forgotten pawn in the game so often played by men alone. Before she was through, the Seagrave name would be rescued from the ash heap of history. No one would remember its failures, only its final success. She would prevail, and those who stood in her way would be vanquished. On that day she would have her child beside her, and there would be no more need for portraits. But that day was not today, so perhaps a single glance. Smoothing her skirt, she locked the office door before retrieving the tiny gold-framed canvas from her desk and gazing anxiously into its guileless blue eyes. The eyes in the portrait shone with all the promise of youth alongside golden hair, an unlined face and a charming smile. She, too, had been that young, that naive, once upon a time. She'd been dazzled by the promises of an older man, promises of wealth and consequence, promises of a place by his side. And she'd been fooled into thinking that he meant to share his power, but he'd meant only to smother her, moment by moment, into accepting his decrees and following his blundering course, and she'd had no choice but to pretend, to bank the fires of her ambition and shutter the passion in her soul. For so many years she'd pretended to be something she was not, and those years had not come without price. As she gazed at the youthful portrait, she pressed a trembling finger to the lines beside her eyes, across her forehead, at the corners of her mouth. They seemed longer, deeper, than they had been only yesterday. She knew it was impossible, but the thought frightened her. Perhaps she would try a new beauty treatment to hold them at bay, at least until after the wedding. Though it wasn't as if her suitor would notice. He was strong, but gullible. Younger than she, but old enough to be desperate. He needed money. She needed a title. They were perfect for each other, and she expected his proposal any day now. After they were married, he would discover she was nowhere near so rich as he supposed, but by then she would no longer need him. First, however, there was a loose end to be tidied up. The woman shoved the portrait out of sight once more and began to pen an invitation. The endgame had begun. Chapter 1. My dearest Brienne, I realise that this letter may come as a surprise to you, given the manner of our only prior meeting. Until recently, any correspondence was forbidden by order of the Earl, who felt that such a connection would be ill-advised, and only serve to remind society of the unfortunate events of the past. Allow me to assure you that I have always wished our circumstances to be otherwise. Had your father not insisted that it was for the best, I would have had the privilege of bringing up our heir as a beloved member of one of Andar's most ancient and respected noble families. Our firstborn child should never have been deprived of the opportunity to learn of the duties and responsibilities of a proud heritage, and I feel that this lack has been one of my greatest failures as a mother. I very much regret the course of action to which your father persuaded me all those years ago, and beg you to believe that I wish very much to correct those errors which have led to the present state of our relationship. If you can find it in your heart to begin anew, I would feel privileged to have you as a guest in my new home near Camber. Crestwood is the name of the modest estate to which I have retired, in order to remain out of the public eye, and though it may prove disappointing to one now accustomed to the grandeur of Norley, I hope that this will not affect your intentions regarding an extended visit. It would be my pleasure to serve as your hostess for as long as your forbearance will permit you to stay. I have chosen to invite no one else during this time, as it is my fondest wish to spend the coming weeks correcting as many of my past failures as a mother as our time together will permit. Please reply as to your plans, and whatever you decide, know that I remain ever regretful, Louise Seagrave. The force of the slamming door rattled the windows and made Countess Lisbeth Norrell look up from her desk with an expression.